The United States has produced some of the wealthiest individuals in human history. Warren Buffett, Charlie Munger, John Bogle, Oprah Winfrey. Self-made, disciplined, methodical, and nearly all of them, every single one, will tell you the same uncomfortable truth. Your income is not your wealth. Your salary is a river. Wealth is the reservoir. And if you never learned how to build a dam, the river just keeps flowing right past you. Over the next 30-odd minutes, we're going to dismantle the myths that are keeping you stuck. We're going to talk about where your money is actually going, why the American financial system is not designed to help you get ahead, and exactly what you need to do, starting today, to change your trajectory. Before getting into this, make sure you don't subscribe so that you can remain a financial dummy. Now, let's start with a number that might shock you. According to a study by the American Payroll Association, roughly 74% of Americans would face significant financial hardship if their paycheck were delayed by just 1 week. 1 week, 7 days. These are not all low-income workers. Many of them are earning $60,000, $80,000, or $100,000 a year, and they are one missed direct deposit away from crisis. How is that possible? Because we were taught to earn. We were never taught to build. Think about your entire educational journey. Years of school, maybe a college degree, possibly a graduate degree. And in all of that time, how many classes taught you about compound interest? About tax-advantaged accounts? About the difference between an asset and a liability? About how inflation silently erodes your purchasing power every single year? None. The answer, for most of us, is none. Robert Kiyosaki, and say what you want about him, got one thing fundamentally right in Rich Dad, Poor Dad. The rich don't work for money. They make money work for them. But before you can make money work, you have to understand what money actually is and what it isn't. Your salary is a trade. You give your time, your expertise, your energy, and in exchange, you receive dollars. That's it. It is a transaction, not a destination. The problem is that most Americans treat their paycheck like an endpoint. The money arrives, and immediately, without any real plan, it begins to disappear. The rent, the car payment, the insurance, the subscriptions, that gym membership you haven't used since January, death by 1,000 small charges. And then there's the big one, the one nobody wants to talk about at the dinner table: taxes. If you're earning $80,000 a year in the United States, you are not taking home $80,000. After federal income tax, FICA, and state taxes, depending on where you live, you might be looking at $55,000 to $60,000 in actual take-home pay. That's a 25% haircut before you spend a single dollar. This is not a complaint about taxes. This is a call to understand them. Because here's what the wealthy know that most earners don't. The US tax code is full of legal, legitimate ways to reduce what you owe. A 401k contribution, a health savings account, a traditional IRA, business deductions if you have a side income. These aren't loopholes for the ultra-rich. They are tools available to you right now, today, that you may not be using. We'll come back to those. But first, let's talk about the enemy you don't see coming. Like the video if this sounds familiar. Now imagine you got a promotion. You were making $55,000 and suddenly you're at 70. And you thought, now I can breathe, now I can save, now things will be different. But 6 months later, you're somehow just as tight as before. That's not a coincidence. That's lifestyle inflation. And it is the single most powerful wealth killer for mid-career earners in America. It's called financial illiteracy, dressed up in a nice car and a mortgage you can barely afford. It's called knowing how to earn, but never learning how to keep. Here's how it works. Every time your income rises, your brain, your perfectly rational, well-intentioned brain, decides that you now deserve a little more. A nicer apartment, a newer car, better restaurants, a vacation that costs 3 times what last year's cost. And these decisions feel reasonable in the moment, because relative to your new income they are. But here's what your brain isn't calculating. Your wealth is not built on what you earn. It is built on the gap between what you earn and what you spend. The financial writer J.L. Collins calls this the wealth gap. Warren Buffett's business partner, Charlie Munger, put it even more bluntly. He said, "I have nothing useful to say to someone who can't control their spending." Harsh, right? Psychologists call this the hedonic treadmill. The idea is simple. As your standard of living increases, your expectations rise with it, and your happiness returns to its baseline. The bigger house stops feeling special after 3 months. The new car loses its magic by the time you make your 5th payment, and now you need something newer, bigger, better, just to feel the same. You're running as fast as you can and getting nowhere. Here's a number to tattoo on the inside of your eyelids: 80%. According to a widely cited study from Princeton, later revisited and refined by economist Angus Deaton, day-to-day emotional well-being plateaus somewhere around $75,000 to $80,000 per household income. Beyond that point, more money stops meaningfully improving how you feel daily. That means if you're already earning good money and you're still miserable or stressed about finances, it is not an income problem. It is a behavior problem. And behavior can be changed. You've probably heard of the 50-30-20 rule. Senator Elizabeth Warren, before she was a senator, when she was a Harvard bankruptcy law professor, popularized it in her book, All Your Worth. 50% of your after-tax income goes to needs, 30% want, 20% to savings and debt repayment. It's a solid framework. It's simple, and it's a great place to start. But here's the hard truth. If you want actual financial freedom, especially starting in your 30s and 40s, 20% isn't going to cut it. Not with the cost of healthcare in this country. Not with the state of Social Security. Not with the kind of lifestyle most Americans are running. The people who reach financial independence in their 50s, they're saving 30, 40, sometimes 50% of their income. It sounds insane. And for most people, it takes years of deliberate, incremental work to get there. But it starts with a mindset shift. Pay yourself first, always, non-negotiably. Before the rent, before the car, before the subscriptions, before the dinner out, you pull your savings off the top like it never existed. Automate it. Remove the decision from your hands entirely. Because willpower is a finite resource, and your savings rate cannot depend on it. Let's talk about debt. Because in America, debt is not a last resort. It's a lifestyle. The average American household carries over $10,000 in credit card debt at an average interest rate of somewhere between 19 and 24%. Let that number land. 24%. If you had an investment that returned 24% a year, you would consider it the greatest investment of your life. Paying off high-interest debt is that investment. Every dollar you carry on a credit card at 20% interest is costing you 20 cents a year, silently, automatically, without your permission, while you sleep, while you're scrolling your phone at midnight, wondering where your money goes. This is not an accident of the financial system. It is a feature of it. The US credit system is brilliant if you're the bank. You are offered money you don't have. You use it to buy things you can't quite afford. You pay it back slowly with interest, which means the bank profits enormously from your impatience and your financial unawareness. Credit card companies, according to data from the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, make the majority of their revenue not from people who never use credit and not from people who pay in full every month. They make it from the people in the middle, the revolvers, the ones who carry a balance, month after month, year after year. If you are one of those people, stop what you're doing and make this your #1 financial priority. Not investing, not saving for vacation, eliminating high-interest consumer debt. When it comes to paying down debt, there are two dominant schools of thought. The first is the debt avalanche. This is the mathematically optimal approach. You list all your debts by interest rate, highest to lowest, and attack the highest rate first while making minimum payments on the rest. This saves you the most money in interest over time. The second is the debt snowball, popularized by Dave Ramsey. You list your debts by balance, smallest to largest, and eliminate the smallest one first. This is not the cheapest approach mathematically, but it's powerful psychologically. Paying off that small debt gives you a win, a real, tangible win. The research from Northwestern University's Kellogg School of Management suggests that for many people, the snowball method actually leads to better outcomes, not because it saves more money, but because people stick to it. So, here's my take. Pick the one you'll actually follow. The best debt payoff strategy is the one you don't quit. Now, let's make a critical distinction that too many people get wrong. Not all debt is created equal. There is debt that depreciates your life and debt that can build it. Bad debt, consumer debt, is money borrowed to fund consumption. Credit cards, car loans for vehicles you can't afford. Buy now, pay later schemes for things you don't need. This is corrosive. Good debt, in the right context, is money borrowed to build an asset or increase your earning capacity. A student loan that meaningfully increases your income. A small business loan tied to real revenue projections. The keyword there is carefully, because bad debt loves to disguise itself as good debt. That mortgage you stretched to afford? That MBA you took on $200,000 of debt for without calculating the ROI? That's bad debt wearing a blazer. Run the numbers, always. Here is something the wealthy understand that most earners never figure out until it's too late. In the United States, the tax code rewards investors and penalizes workers. That's not a political statement, it's mathematics. If you earn $100,000 at your job, a significant portion of that goes to federal income tax, Social Security, and Medicare. But if you earn $100,000 from long-term capital gains, meaning investments you've held for over a year, your tax rate could be as low as 0%, depending on your income bracket. 0. This is not a conspiracy. It's written into the tax code, and it is available to anyone who understands it. Let's talk about the 3 most powerful tax-advantaged accounts available to mid-career American earners. These are not exotic instruments for the rich. They are tools sitting right in front of you, possibly going unused. First, 401k. If your employer offers a 401k match and you are not contributing at least enough to capture that full match, you are leaving free money on the table. This is not a gray area. In 2026, you can contribute up to $24,500 to a 401k. $24,500 that reduces your taxable income today and grows tax-deferred until retirement. Second, the Roth IRA. This is the opposite structure. You contribute after-tax dollars now, but every dollar of growth and every withdrawal in retirement is completely tax-free. If you believe tax rates will be higher in the future, and there are strong arguments for that, the Roth is a powerful hedge. In 2026, the maximum Roth IRA contribution is $7,500 for individuals under age 50 and $8,600 for those age 50 or older. Third, the Health Savings Account, the HSA. This is the most underappreciated account in the American tax system. If you have a high deductible health plan, you can contribute to an HSA. And here's the magic. Contributions are tax deductible. The money grows tax-free, and withdrawals for qualified medical expenses are tax-free. Triple tax advantage. And here's what most people miss. After age 65, you can withdraw HSA funds for any purpose, just like a traditional IRA. It is a stealth retirement account that most people use as a checking account for doctor's bills. Start maxing these, in that order, if possible. Your future self is counting on your current self to make these decisions. Here's a hard truth. If you work for someone else your whole life, W-2 employees have the fewest tax deductions available to them under the US tax code. Business owners, freelancers, and investors have vastly more levers to pull. This doesn't mean you need to quit your job tomorrow, but it does mean you should be thinking about a side income stream, a small business, or investment income, not just as a financial strategy, but as a tax strategy. The IRS allows business owners to deduct legitimate business expenses, a portion of your home office, business travel, professional development, equipment. These deductions can meaningfully reduce your taxable income in ways a straight salary never will. Consult a CPA who specializes in small business or investment taxes. The cost of a good tax advisor almost always pays for itself, often many times over. Let's talk about the engine of wealth, not income, not budgeting, not even debt payoff, though all of those matter. The engine is investing. Specifically, the miracle of compound growth over time. Albert Einstein reportedly called compound interest the eighth wonder of the world. Whether he said it or not, the math doesn't lie. Here is a simple illustration. If you invest $500 a month starting at age 35 and earn an average annual return of 7%, by the age 65, you will have approximately $568,000. You contributed $180,000. The market added nearly $400,000. That is the power of time and compound growth. But here's the brutal flip side. Every decade you wait cuts your outcome roughly in half. Waiting until 45 instead of 35, you're not just 10 years behind. You are potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars behind. The best time to start was yesterday. The second best time is today. Now let's talk about how to invest, because this is where most people get it wrong. Not by failing to invest, but by investing in the wrong things for the wrong reasons. In the 1970s, a man named John Bogle founded a company called Vanguard and introduced the world to the index fund. His idea was radical in its simplicity. Instead of trying to pick winning stocks or hire managers to beat the market, just buy the whole market. Hold it, keep costs low, and let time do the rest. The financial industry hated him for it, because index funds don't generate commissions. They don't require expensive fund managers. They are, by design, boring, and they work. Study after study, including the legendary Spiva report, which tracks active fund managers against their benchmark indexes, shows that over 10 years, roughly 80 to 90% of actively managed funds underperform their index benchmark after fees. Not occasionally, consistently, year after year. This is what Warren Buffett told the trustees of his estate. Put 90% of assets in a low-cost S&P 500 index fund. The man who is arguably the greatest stock picker in history is telling his family, don't try to pick stocks. The lesson: you don't need to be clever, you need to be consistent. You may have heard the old rule. Subtract your age from 100 to determine what percentage of your portfolio should be in stocks. So, at 40, 60% stocks, 40% bonds. That rule is outdated. Life expectancy has risen dramatically. A 40-year-old today may have 45 or 50 years of investing ahead of them. Holding 40% in bonds at 40, especially in a low-yield environment, is leaving significant growth on the table. A more modern approach, endorsed by financial planners like Michael Kitz's and the research of Vanguard itself, suggests that many investors can hold a much higher equity allocation well into their 50s, gradually shifting toward capital preservation only as they near the end of their working years. The key variable is not your age. It is your risk tolerance, specifically your ability to watch your portfolio drop 30% in a recession and not panic sell. Because that panic sell is where most retail investors destroy their returns. They buy high because the market is exciting. They sell low because the market is scary. They pay advisors who charge 1% annually to guide them through exactly those decisions. 1% sounds small. On a $400,000 portfolio, that's $4,000 a year. Over 20 years, accounting for the lost compounding on that money, you could be giving up tens of thousands of dollars for advice you may not need. This doesn't mean all financial advisors are a waste. Fee-only fiduciary advisors, people who are legally required to act in your interest and who charge flat fees rather than percentages, can be genuinely valuable, especially for complex situations. But know what you're paying and what you're getting. We need to talk about the two biggest financial decisions most Americans make and the narratives wrapped around them that may be costing you a fortune: the house and the car. Every financial culture in America tells you that buying a home is the cornerstone of wealth building, and there is truth to that, under the right conditions. But there is an enormous amount of nuance that the always buy narrative glosses over. Here's what the standard pitch sounds like. Renting is throwing money away. A home is an investment. Real estate always appreciates. Get on the property ladder. Here's what the math actually says. When you buy a home, your down payment is typically 10 to 20% of the purchase price. The remaining 80 to 90% you borrow, and you pay interest on it. On a $400,000 home with a 20% down payment and a 6.5% 30-year mortgage, you will pay, over the life of that loan, approximately $509,000 in interest alone. You pay over $900,000 for a $400,000 home. Add property taxes, maintenance. Financial planners typically budget 1 to 2% of home value annually. HOA fees, if applicable, insurance, and the opportunity cost of that $80,000 down payment that could have been compounding in the market. This is not an argument against home ownership. For many people, in the right market, with the right timeline, a home is a tremendous financial decision. But it is only a good investment if you stay long enough in a market that appreciates, and if the total cost of ownership doesn't overwhelm the benefit. The New York Times has a rent versus buy calculator that does this math with ruthless accuracy. Use it. Do not buy a home because your parents tell you to or because your colleagues are doing it. Buy it because the numbers make sense for your specific situation. A new car loses roughly 15 to 25% of its value the moment you drive it off the lot. Within 5 years, it may have lost 60% of its purchase price. And yet Americans finance new cars they can barely afford, roll negative equity from their previous loan into the new one, and carry monthly payments of $500, $600, sometimes $800 for vehicles that are going nowhere financially. Dave Ramsey's position on cars is extreme. He recommends paying cash for everything. That's not realistic for everyone, but the principle underneath it is sound. Your car is a depreciating liability, not an investment. The less of your income you spend on transportation, the more you have to build actual wealth. Financial independence researchers, particularly the FIRE community, which stands for Financial Independence, Retire Early, frequently cite transportation as one of the biggest levers for increasing savings rate. A 2-year-old certified pre-owned vehicle, bought with cash or a short loan at low interest, does everything a new vehicle does at a fraction of the lifetime cost. Drive the car that gets you there, not the car that impresses people who don't care about your net worth. We've torn down the illusions. We've named the traps. Now let's talk about what you actually build. True financial freedom is not about being rich. It is about having enough. Specifically, it's about reaching a point where your assets generate enough income to cover your living expenses indefinitely, without you having to trade your time for a paycheck. The FIRE movement has a useful concept here, called the 4% rule, derived from the Trinity study of the 1990s. The idea, if you have a portfolio large enough that withdrawing 4% per year covers your living expenses, and that portfolio is invested in a diversified mix of stocks and bonds, historical data suggests that portfolio will last at least 30 years, and in most scenarios, indefinitely. What does that mean in practice? If your annual expenses are $60,000, you need a portfolio of $1.5 million to be financially free. That sounds like a mountain, but it's a mountain with a path. Step 1. Get crystal clear on your numbers. Know your monthly expenses down to the dollar. Know your net worth, assets minus liabilities, right now. You cannot navigate to a destination without knowing where you currently stand. Step 2. Build a 3 to 6 month emergency fund in a high-yield savings account. As of 2026, high-yield savings accounts from online banks are offering 4 to 5% interest. Your emergency fund should be working while it waits. This fund is not an investment, it is insurance. It is what prevents a crisis from becoming a catastrophe. Step 3. Eliminate all high-interest consumer debt. Every dollar of 20% credit card debt you eliminate is a guaranteed 20% return. Nothing in the investment market comes with that guarantee. Step 4. Invest consistently and automatically. Max your 401k match first. then your HSA is eligible, then your Roth IRA, then taxable brokerage accounts, low-cost index funds, every month, without exception. Do not try to time the market. Time in the market beats timing the market every single time over long horizons. Step 5. Increase your income. Savings rate matters enormously, but your income is a ceiling on your savings. A side income, a negotiated raise, a freelance skill monetized, a rental unit. Any increase in income that is directed entirely to savings and investment accelerates the timeline dramatically. An extra $1,000 a month invested at 7% for 20 years is over $600,000 additional dollars. Step 6. Protect what you build. Adequate life insurance if you have dependents. Term life, not whole life in most cases. Disability insurance, which is dramatically underutilized and dramatically underestimated as a risk. A will and basic estate planning, which more than 60% of Americans still don't have. These are not afterthoughts. They are the foundation that keeps a financial life from being dismantled by a single event. We've covered a lot of ground. We talked about how a good salary can fool you into thinking you're building wealth when you're actually just funding a lifestyle. We talked about lifestyle inflation, the hedonic treadmill, and the tyranny of high-interest debt. We walked through the tax system, not to complain about it, but to use it, to understand that in America, the tax code rewards people who invest, who own, who build, and that those tools are available to you. We talked about investing without ego, without trying to beat the market, without paying for performance that statistically seldom comes. We talked about housing and cars and status and the very expensive stories we tell ourselves about what we deserve. And we laid out a path, not a hack, not a shortcut, a path. But here's the thing I want you to leave with. The one thing. The thing that underlies all of it. Financial freedom is not a financial problem. It is a thinking problem. The people who get ahead financially are not smarter than you. They are not luckier than you. Not always, not systematically. What they have is a different relationship with money. They see it not as a reward for work done, but as a tool for building a future. They delay gratification, not because they hate enjoyment, but because they know what they're building toward. They think in decades, not months. They automate the right behaviors so they don't have to rely on willpower every single day. And they understand something that no one teaches in school. You get rich slowly, or you don't get rich at all. There is no viral moment for financial freedom. No lottery ticket, no crypto windfall, no side hustle that 10 times your net worth overnight, not sustainably. It is 1,000 small decisions made consistently over years and decades. It is boring, it is unglamorous, and it is the only thing that actually works. You have time, not unlimited time, but time. The window is still open. Every month you don't act is a month of compounding you lose forever. But every month you do act is a brick in a structure that will outlast the job, the paycheck, and the paycheck-to-paycheck fear. You make good money. Now it's time to make good decisions. If this audiobook moved you, share it. Give it to a colleague, a sibling, a friend who earns and wonders where it all goes. Take care of your money so your money can take care of you.